It's Footlong Nation Appreciation, and Subway is thanking Footlong fans by giving away thousands of prizes every day, plus free Footlongs for life. Get your codes on 30-ounce drinks and Doritos Nacho Cheese Chips to play and win big. Subway, where winners eat.
Welcome to the BS Report. A sunny Tuesday here in Southern California. A little bit later, we'll be talking baseball with our buddy JackO. But right now, the voice of the New York Knicks, the voice of the NBA for ESPN and ABC, and somebody whose career, listen, I know it was doing pretty well, but I think you've been rejuvenated by Linsanity. Mike Breen, what's happening?
Hello, Mr. Bill. I think everybody who's been around that has been rejuvenated.
Where did that rank in your top 10 favorite bangs when Lin hit the one against the Raptors to basically win the game?
It's up there because you and I have talked before. I mean, been fortunate to do a lot of great games, more meaningful, more dramatic, more exciting, more thrilling. But it's the most fun I've had in 20 years doing the NBA. This 2-week stretch.
Wow,
it's phenomenal, and it's because of the atmosphere around it that has a lot to do with it. I mean, fans are, and you don't say this about NBA fans, they're giddy. I mean, they're absolutely giddy at the Garden.
Yeah, and
his teammates are giddy. You know, the expression of, they're like a college team. This is like a high school team, the way they're acting. It's incredible the way he has raised the spirits of his teammates, the organization, the fans, the city, and he has definitely crossed over into not only non-casual, the casual NBA fans, but the non-fans as well.
You didn't do his first Nets game, did you?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Right, the one where he emerged.
So at what point during this game did you say to yourself, well, wait a second, this guy's actually good. Why hasn't he been playing?
Well, the night before he plays against the Celtics, and he played in the first half, he was the first guard off the bench, which is the first time that happened all season. And although he didn't have a lot of statistics, he was getting in the paint. He was driving north as opposed to going east and west, and a Knick point guard hadn't done that all season.
Yep.
So Jeff Van Gundy and I were saying, boy, he looks pretty effective. And then he didn't play at all in the second half, and we both wondered why he didn't play. Never expecting anything to happen the way it happened. But we were saying, wow, the guy actually made some things happen, and he was able to get in the paint. So when he did the next night, we weren't surprised that he played. But by halftime, you're saying, wow, he might be a pretty good backup. That's what everybody was saying. Maybe we found a guy that could be a good backup to Baron Davis when Baron Davis comes back.
Yep. And then when did that shift?
The Utah game was when you started to think, wait, there's a little more to this guy than meets the eye. And, one by one, he's kind of knocking down these criticisms. The first one, let him do it more than 1 or 2 games. Okay, he's done that. Let him do it against a good team. They haven't played anybody. Well, he's starting to do that as well.
Yeah. And
it really shifted the Laker game because the hype prior to the Laker game was as much hype as I've seen for a regular season game in a long, long time. I mean, it was off the charts, even for New York. And he comes out in that game and plays the way he does against Kobe and the Lakers, the national spotlight. It was truly remarkable the way he handled all the outside distractions and just came and just played ball.
My friend Louis Kay was their Laker fan. He was also at Game 7 of the 2010 Finals, which was, to that point, the best game he had ever been to. Obviously not in my top 500,000. But he said that the crowd at that Lakers-Knicks game was just about exactly the same as that Game 7 2010 Finals crowd in LA. And I was like, really? And he was like, yes. Do you back that up?
It's maybe I'm not as objective as I should be growing up in New York, growing up a Knicks fan, but the pregame buzz and just the craziness when he hit the big shots was as good as any finals games in terms of the atmosphere. And there are 2 things that you notice at the Garden now. First off, everybody's at their seats early. It's 7:00 and they're all in their seats because they're all standing, taking the pictures, wanting to see the kid warm up, and wanting to talk to the guy next to him about, boy, what do you think? It's that social thing again where they all want to get there early. It used to be, 7:30, 7:35, people are still drifting into the building. Now they're all early. And the other thing, Nobody makes signs anymore. Who makes signs? It's not cool anymore.
Right.
There's signs all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like it's a rebirth of making signs. There are kids at home with magic markers on construction paper making signs, and I haven't seen that in a long, long time.
Now, if you had to break this up, how from a percentage standpoint, how much of this has to do with the fact that the Knicks have great fans and it had just been so long since they had an entertaining team that they're just beside themselves that this is happening, and how much of it has to do with the fact that this is a Taiwanese American guy who is tapping into this whole storyline that's just never happened?
I think the number one part of it, the highest percentage, is just the underdog role. When you combine the Asian American factor and the Harvard factor,
Yep.
I think that's really what's grabbing people. That's number one.
You put that over the Knicks thing, really? Interesting.
Yes, I would, because I'm hearing from people around the country. I've bounced around a couple of places, and everybody's asking. Other players are asking. I've got my best friend from high school has lived in Asia for the past 15 years. He's now in Shanghai. He says they're going crazy over there.
Yep.
So it's, I think that's the big part of it. Those two, and I don't know which one is stronger than the other, but they're both big in terms of why it's so popular. And then the other thing too, I think, is it's the humility of the kid. He hits a big basket or makes a nice pass. What is he doing? He's got this ear-to-ear grin. He's smiling.
Yeah.
He's enjoying it as much as any of us would enjoy it if we were put in that situation. He's not trying to be like I'm the cool NBA point guard. He's like a fan who's enjoying what he's doing, and I think that's the other thing that really, really gets people connecting with him.
I think it's amazing that he's even been competent these last couple games, because you think and I know a million people have made the sleeping on the couch reference, but forget about that. Just the process of going from being a relatively anonymous guy. I met him a year ago. A friend of mine was friends with him. We talked for 10 minutes. He was a guy that probably 2 people in the whole room noticed. Now he's a legitimate mega celebrity. And I'm sure even when he's warming up at these Knicks games, he can feel 20,000 people just staring at him. That whole process has to be just crazy.
Bill, that's the amazing thing. It's almost like you're waiting for him when the game starts. There's so much weight on his shoulders right now, and every eye looking at him. You almost feel like he's going to just fall down. I'm waiting for him just to fall down and not be able to get up for a couple of days, because it has to be so overwhelming. And that's one of the impressive parts about him. We'll talk all about his court vision and his playmaking ability, but his ability to put that outside stuff away when he steps on the court. And I think one of the reasons he's good at that is because he's humble. There's no question. It's genuine. The humility is off the charts. But with that said, he's very confident in his ability as a basketball player. Like, he's in the back of his head, he's saying, I should have gotten this shot a while ago. It's something that it almost bothers him. He thinks he's that good where he should have been on the court. So he does not lack confidence when he steps on the floor. Yeah,
a little bit of that Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers thing of it was a slate to him. And I know for a fact, he was on the Knicks for how many weeks? But forget about how he played. I think the first 2 weeks, I don't even think Mike D'Antoni even said his name. He was just this guy on the end of the bench that they didn't even consider playing, really. I'm sure that had to bother him.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But you know what he looks at, and this is one of the cool things, too, about the whole thing, is that there are so many what-ifs in this story. You can list 40 of them that if it didn't happen this way, he doesn't get his chance.
Yep.
So many, going from Golden State to Houston. I mean, and even going back even to his college days, there's so many of those, well, if this didn't happen, I don't know if this is going to happen. I mean, basically, he was the fifth-string point guard for the Knicks. They had Tony Douglas, Iman Shumpert, Mike Bibby, and waiting for Baron Davis. So for all intents and purposes, he's number 5. And all 5 of these things had to happen, including Shumpert getting injured on Christmas Day. Shumpert doesn't get injured on Christmas Day. They don't sign him. He's never a Knick. And that's just one of dozens of the what-ifs.
My favorite is the 3-team trade that got canceled, because he would have been Houston's backup point guard.
Right.
Because Dragic is gone.
Right.
And that's it. And Houston liked him. They wanted to keep him. They had 17 guys under contract. And then you look at Golden State, if they had just, I think if they had amnestied Andres Biedrins instead of Charlie Bell or something like that and just bought out Bell, they could have kept him. Like, it was a variety
and
of things.
That was apparently close to happening.
Yeah.
And then the same thing in Houston. If D'Alembert, he's not coming over, then he may have stuck around a little bit longer. It's impossible to. And again, Baron Davis. If Baron Davis hits the target date when they expected him to return, Lin never takes the floor.
Yeah, and it might not be coming back for Baron. It's been a while since he's had a relevant basketball moment. He's 32, bad back. I just watching him last night. I don't know. I mean, the Knicks fans. What I thought was interesting before Linsanity started, the Knicks fans, their entire season was hinging on this hope that Baron Davis was going to come back.
And that's one of the reasons I think what you said earlier about their hunger, their desperation for good basketball. Kind of blinded them to the fact that you can't be counting on Baron Davis. Now I hope he comes back. He's working hard. But it just goes to show you how desperate they are. I've used the term for years. The Knicks fans are as hungry a fan base as any fan base in any pro sports right now for something special to happen. And that's why, and I don't think it's over the top, but I think that's why you have this kind of euphoria. There's a euphoric feeling at Madison Square Garden on the nights of these games now.
I wrote about this last week in the mailbag about I hate to keep harping on LeBron and the choices that he's made because, he's whatever. He's a guy in his mid-20s who wanted to live on South Beach. But at least I hope that he realizes as he watches this Jeremy Lin thing from afar, that he really could own New York. And I do feel like that just goes beyond like being a brand or playing in a big city. What it would mean to the Knicks fans and how many generations of Knicks fans that there are. And that's the thing that people forget. There's only a couple franchises that have generations of fans in the NBA. The Knicks are a team that go back to 46 or whatever. You have Knicks fans who are in their 80s who could remember watching Walt Bellamy and all these different people play, and that's what you get when you come to New York. It's not just a big city. It's
the families that have bonded, like you say. It's a way of a family life, and whoever is the main guy responsible for bringing a championship to New York will never have to. You could retire the day after and never spend another cent. If you live in New York City, you'll never have to spend another cent. Your life is taken care of forever.
Well, look at how that 70 Knicks team is revered. I mean, all those guys. You were Walt Frazier. You still work with Walt, right?
Yeah. All the games on MSG.
Yeah. Those guys. It was 40 years ago.
You should see now what happens all the time. Men who are my age, I'm 50, who send up their kids to get Clyde's autograph because they're still too intimidated to go up and approach Clyde themselves. I've seen grown men who they shake when they see Clyde. They're so intimidated by his presence that they'll send up their kids and the kid will come up and ask for the autograph and Clyde will look around and say, "Where's the dad? I know the dad's around here somewhere."
You got to ask Clyde this, and maybe you'll give us the answer the next time you come on. Because I was watching the Namath documentary on HBO, which was about a half hour too long, but it was still pretty good.
Great.
In their prime, in their peak, because they were right there basically the same time in New York. Who owned New York more, Namath or Frazier? Let's say they're both in a bar in 1971, and there's some great-looking pseudo-actress or whatever, and both of them want the actress. Who's the alpha dog in that bar? The question has never been answered, and I want an answer.
I will ask him that.
Ask him that. Just ask him if Namath, when he was in a room with Namath, if he was like, "Oh crap, now I'm looking at the second best option tonight because Namath's going to get first dibs."
Two guys from the South who owned New York.
They did, and even like in terms of how they dressed, how their cool apartment, how they celebrated being bachelors. I always thought like that would have been a more interesting documentary. Right. I just would have watched Frazier versus Namath. Frazier versus Namath, early 70s.
Just to have him one night hanging out with him back in those days.
Right. So anyway, the LeBron thing. I'm still not ruling it out for him. I wonder if he watches this stuff and maybe the Knicks won't win the next couple of years. His contract's coming up. Maybe he will say to himself, maybe that's where I should go. Maybe that's the best way for me to swing all this back around and make me the good guy again. I go to New York and I win a title.
it'll be really interesting to see what he does decide to do. I mean, so much depends on, if they win a couple of titles in a row, my guess is he's going to finish up there. But if they don't, for some reason, I mean, it's a fascinating prospect to see where he's going to go. But I don't think he looks at it that way. I really don't. I think he makes his decision and he goes on. He's fine on it. And whether he could have been an icon in New York, I don't think that crosses his mind.
You've seen everybody at this point, right? You've done at least one game with every contender.
Correct.
Who was the best team you saw?
When they were healthy, Chicago.
Wow. Wasn't expecting that.
And Miami right behind them. Right behind them.
Why Chicago? Because of the defense?
The defense and the depth. Their second unit, as good as Miami's depth is so much improved this year, but that defensive second unit for Chicago, you can't score against them. And Rose is the other thing too is Rose. He's the guy all the time, and if they have Rip Hamilton to help in the playoffs, and that's a huge if right now. At least he has something else. I just think, at least for the regular season. Now, playoff time, let's see. But health-wise, I like Chicago.
I can't think of another example in NBA history where somebody won a title without a second scorer that they knew in the last 4 minutes could help them. I feel like I know they're probably better at all the same things they were good at last year, but it's still the same problem, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's a big question mark now with Hamilton. He's had so many injuries, he just can't get healthy. And after watching Miami on Sunday, LeBron James defensively on Sunday was so reminiscent of Scottie Pippen, who I think is the best help defender I've ever seen.
Yeah,
he was all over the court. He was guarding 4 or 5 different guys per possession. His versatility and his desire to stop people. He was crazed, and here's just a regular season game on a Sunday afternoon, but he was annoyed with the way the Magic beat them. That was their last loss. He played defense. It was sensational to watch.
Yeah, and it's stunning to me that people are like, "Oh, who's the MVP?" It's like
besides Jeremy Lin,
right? We have an MVP. LeBron James is having the best statistical season he's ever had, and he's playing as well as he's ever played, and he's doing it during this ridiculous season where they're playing 5 and 6 games a week, and it's not phasing him. All these other guys are breaking down. Durant, LeBron, and to I guess a lesser extent Blake Griffin seem to be the only people that I've watched on that superstar level who are just going full tilt every game. Everyone else is picking their spots.
LeBron's shooting 55% from the field. 55%.
It's incredible.
And defensively, it's the best I've seen him play defensively.
I don't even think it's an argument. I mean, yeah, if Oklahoma City goes 56-10 and nobody else comes within 7 wins of them, yeah, maybe you could make a case for Durant. And if the Clippers end up getting the 1 seed in the West or something, yeah, maybe you could make a Chris Paul turn the team around case. But if you're doing it objectively, I don't see how LeBron. He's also the best player. He also passes the eye test.
Right.
You just watch it. He's the best player.
It's clear cut right now. But as said before the season, he could average a triple double. He could average 30, 15, and 12, and he still knows it doesn't really matter until June, and they win the whole thing. But what I love is he's not letting it affect how he's approaching the season. I mean, they really are. They are so much better than they were last year.
You really believe that?
Oh, I do.
Interesting.
I just think their comfort level with each other, and Bosh is real comfortable. Like, Bosh isn't worried about if he scores 8 points on a certain night. Wade goes out, he scores 25. He's fine with it. He's kind of filtered into, he's not really the big 3, it's the big 2 in him. And now you add, Mike Miller and Haslam and Battier, 3 guys who were not there last year. Miller was a shell. Haslam obviously hurt, and Battier wasn't even there. And Norris Cole's he's a legitimate backup point guard. Chalmers is much better.
Yeah, but I don't think Wade's as good. All the stuff you listed, I agree with. I'm not sure if they're going to get the same Wade, and he's at the point of his career now where, you're not going to say he's past his prime, but I think last year, especially, man, that Game 3 and Game 4 in Dallas, I just thought he was the best player on the floor. And
right.
I don't know if he's the way LeBron's playing right now, and what I've seen from Wade this year. I don't know if the best of Wade will ever be the best player on the floor if LeBron is playing well.
All right, but he doesn't have to be.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. So you like their crunch time 5 with Battier out there?
Yeah,
Anthony's got to be out there crunch time, right?
Joel Anthony?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony, LeBron, Wade, Battier,
and Chalmers.
It's
a great defensive team. Great defensive team.
That's your crunch time 5 right now that you'd want.
Yeah. Chalmers has played really well. He's really taken a nice step. He's like every night you saw stretches before, but now every night you're getting it.
I still don't trust him. We'll see. I
you
be
need
honest.
to trust more in your life, Bill.
There's not a team that I like. I guess at gunpoint you take Miami, but especially in the West, I'm prepared for anybody to come out of the West. I seriously think if Zebo comes back in time, I think Memphis could beat any of these teams. I really do. I think Memphis is hanging tough without Zebo as their best player. They're like 17-14.
Right. And Ginobili comes back, a couple of weeks before, and it's like anybody. I can even see Dallas. What if Lamar Odom starts playing? Yeah. Dallas has played really well, and he really hasn't given them anything.
Oh, that's an understatement. He seems like he's still sulking. Or something's going on.
It's sad to see because he's always been one of my favorite players in terms of how many different things he does. Right. But I think that there is none. There obviously Oklahoma City, even the Lakers. Once they get past the trading deadline, they stop worrying about all this stuff.
Have you stopped calling Mark Jackson at 2:30 in the morning sobbing?
Big win last night.
I saw it. It was a good win because their season was right on. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs or anything, but they're right at that point now where it's like, all right, what do we do here? Should we maybe start playing the young guys? Should we maybe try to pursue a Monte Ellis trade? Like, what's our next move? What do we want to be? Because you don't want to be in the middle. That's where the Celtics are at too. You don't want to be right in that middle between like the 8th seed and the bottom of the lottery.
Right, and
that's NBA no man's land.
Everything can change with the trading deadline in terms of what we're saying. By the way, you mentioned the Celtics. What are you thinking? Like, what does Danny Ainge do? If you're Danny Ainge, what do you do?
It's the same thing. You don't want to be in the middle. I actually wish, if it were up to me, I would try to turn the KG expiring contract and the Ray Allen expiring contract and get good players that could help this year that are under contract for next year. It's an unpopular opinion. But, like, for instance, Dallas desperately wants to get rid of Sean Marion because they want to create enough cap room to sign Darren Williams and Dwight Howard. It's no secret. So you have Cuban on Twitter, like, praising Sean Marion almost twice a week now. It's kind of funny.
He's Defensive Player of the Year. He wants him to be now.
He's great. He's playing really well this year. But, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to sign Darren Williams and Dwight Howard if they have Sean Marion on their roster this summer. And if I'm the Celtics, could you get Marion and Odom for Gasol? I'm sorry, for KG.
You might be able to. I just think that they'll have no problem getting free agents, and I think you got to be careful trying.
Dallas?
No, Boston.
You think they'll have no problem getting free agents, Mike Breen?
No problem.
Do you realize that we have not signed a marquee free agent since Dominique Wilkins in 1994?
Things are different. Things
are different. How are they different?
They have maybe the favorite player coach in the NBA now.
Oh, you're playing
the man who you've come around. No, man who you've come around on.
I have come around. I stand by everything I wrote from 05 to 07, though.
Well, he had no players.
All right. I still stand by it.
Okay, I admire that.
I think it's gotten better.
I admire that.
Listen, people get better at their jobs.
I admire your dedication to it.
People get better. Even during the 08 season, he didn't really know what he was doing until the last couple rounds. I mean, we almost lost the first 2 rounds to really bad Atlanta and Cleveland teams. They both teams took us to 7 games. We had like 10 of the best 12 players in each series. But I think that I would put Doc down in the top 4. I really would.
I want you just so I want you to say that one more time.
I would put Doc Rivers in the top 4 coaches right now.
Nice. Boy, it's nice to hear that.
Popovich is 1. That's why I went to Spurs Clippers. Popovich is incredible. I mean, half the guys on his team are like these cast-off retreat dudes that are like playing crunch time, and he's just trained them to just play these specific roles. Danny Green, Gary Neal, Matt Bonner. These guys are like, who are these guys?
You know, when you think a guy like that who's been on top of the NBA chain and won the championships. When it would start to go a little south, probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. He seems to enjoy it as much as he ever has. Obviously, when you have your star players are so coachable and so unselfish, but I think it's amazing how he's kept his enthusiasm up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. And now people are starting to say it, like, hey, what about San Antonio? Like, last year was a fluke for them. They had one team that they were not going to beat in the playoffs and happened to play them in round one. But that was it was like boxing. It was a terrible matchup. And It's going to be a terrible matchup again for them this year if they have to play them. But for the most part, they're going to, in a series, probably beat any other team.
And if you want to get Clyde's goat up, you talk about point guards, and it's the era of the point guards.
Yep.
He gets mad when people don't get Tony Parker the recognition, because for Clyde, all that matters are rings.
Yep.
And the guy still does it with all these great point guards. Ask anybody. Spend the next day, ask 5 different people. Name me your 5 best point guards. Tony Parker won't be mentioned in anybody's list.
And that's somebody that was kind of sitting there for a while that people could have traded for him. He had that weird thing with he may or may not have dated Brent Barry's wife after he was on the team. That whole saga, and it did seem like he was available. And it's a little reminiscent of right now. It seems like you can get Pau Gasol.
Right.
And I look at it from the Celtics standpoint. Do you want to build around Rajon Rondo? Do you want the next 5 years of this franchise to hinge on everything that Rondo does and doesn't do? I'm not sure. If I can get Pau Gasol for him and Jermaine O'Neal's expiring contract, which I've plugged in the trade machine 10,000 times, I think Pau Gasol is one of the top 12 players in the league. I think he's a little bummed out this year because they tried to trade him and the trade fell through. Maybe his heart's not totally in it. I get that. I mean, wouldn't you feel that way?
You know what people think? They think that the trade rumors, everybody's the same in dealing with it. It's just the opposite. Everybody is so different. He's a very emotional, sensitive player. And I think trade rumors bother him as much as any player I've ever seen. And it's hard for him to commit completely when he feels somebody's not committing to him. And people forget the guy he's one of the best players in the world. And prior to Dirk's playoff run last year, I would say he was the most talented and skilled big man in the world.
I kind of still feel like he is.
Yeah.
I mean, Dirk is more of a perimeter guy than a big guy. I think if you're just looking at big guys who can do the most things, you put him on the list, and he's only 31. And I just think with the way the aging process is with the NBA, like look at Nash. He's as good as he ever was. He's 39.
Right. Gasol's got at least 5-6 more years, very close to his top production level, I think.
I totally agree. And anyway, I feel like there's moves for the Celtics team, and whether they do them or not remains to be seen. But it's just hard for me to believe that the Lakers are this eager to shop Gasol. It seems a little panicky to me. It would not be my move.
We had all this good talk about the Knicks, and how did it suddenly switch over to the Celtics?
You brought it up because you wanted me. Because you love Doc. You and Doc go way back, and you wanted to eke out my top 4 comment. It was your only goal for coming on the podcast. I will say though, your thing about handling trade rumors differently. I remember when we tried to trade Jeff Van Gundy to CBS for Clark Kellogg, and he caught wind of it. He went to a dark place.
I keep telling him, I said, do you remember that night you were coaching and we lost at the buzzer? It was the 4th game of 5 nights. We got into the hotel in Minnesota about 3 o'clock in the morning. Remember how miserable you were that night? Just think about that when you want to accept your next head coaching job.
Oh, God. Yeah, what happens if he becomes a coach? Then you're just alone. You'd just be you'd be like Vince Scully. You'd be doing NBA games by yourself. No color guy, just grabbing ushers.
Every week I keep telling him, no, please.
I got to be honest. I just think that's a great life. I mean, I know the money. I know Doc signed for $30 million, so maybe there's 30 million reasons why I'd rather be a coach than TV. But I think I had a chance to do it that one night with your arch rival, Dan Shulman, and it was so much fun. I remember saying to Jackson after, we were sitting in the ramp after the game, and I was like, I can't believe you do this for a living. And he was like, I can't believe it either. And I was like, well, why would you want to coach? And he's like, I don't know. And then 5 months later, he took the Warriors job.
It's the greatest job in the world.
It really is.
And I think at first there was no way he would ever think of he's going to stay in the business. but I think he's realized how much fun it is, and I don't think it's a given.
Underrated about your job is the one thing that people would think is awesome is the seat. And the seat's actually not as good as you'd think it would be. It's almost like you're too close. It's really hard to get a feel for the game. Like you actually have to look at the monitor more than you think you would.
The best seat would be about 10 rows up.
Yes.
The old Garden,
Yep.
before they refurbished it, they had the radio booth was 10 rows up right over the tunnel. It was without question the best seat to call a game. Just fantastic, because you had a little height to see the whole floor, because sometimes you are so close to it.
And you guys are like, it's so crammed in, those 3 seats, too. That's the other thing. You're right on top of each other.
It's not as crammed this year now that Mark has
true.
left us in a lurch.
That's true. I forgot about that. I did it with Jack. I was between Jackson and Shulman.
Dan, right.
Yeah. Who I know you don't like talking about because,
Dan?
all your rivals you seek out. No, I
know. I'm going to tell you something. Most of the guys our age, we have such great camaraderie. Is there competitiveness? Maybe, but we have such great camaraderie. I think he right now is as versatile a play-by-play guy as I've ever heard. The guy's tremendous no matter what sport he does. Tremendous.
Yeah, how many? You're strictly basketball now, right?
Yeah, I don't have that kind of versatility.
I do feel like there's we talked about this last time we were on the podcast. There's a certain rhythm for doing basketball games, and there's also a certain rhythm for doing hockey games, and there's a certain rhythm for doing baseball games. I think pretty much anybody can go into a football game and wing it to some degree, but the other 3, you need a certain cadence. It's almost I can't even really explain what it is, but you kind of know it when you hear it. Like I hear Mike Emmerich do hockey, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's how you call hockey. You know what I mean? No,
there's no question. And football is so much fun to call, and I did it for a few years. But basketball is different. You're absolutely right. You can almost tell when you're hearing somebody who doesn't do basketball on a regular basis that it's not. Now, maybe again, I'm not objective, being that it's my favorite. But I think there's no question. There's a different rhythm to it.
Last question, because we didn't talk about this. This is a good one to end on. So this Carmelo thing, my personal take is he's one of the 10 or 12 most talented players in the league. He's one of the best scorers in the league. He's played in a bunch of different types of situations, including the 2008 Olympics. I think he has, in his basketball DNA, the ability to figure out how to fit in with everything that's going on. Do you agree?
Absolutely. To me, the offensive end of the floor is not going to be the problem. He's a smart guy, and I do think he wants to win. It's the other end of the floor. He simply doesn't play hard enough defensively all the time. He has a part-time commitment to defense, and until that changes, especially at his position, I just can't see him reaching their potential. And Stoudemire as well. It's the same thing. Offensively, they'll be fine, but those 2 guys are part-time defenders, and as you have seen, if you don't give a full-time commitment, especially your star players, boy, it's tough to advance in the playoffs.
I'm humiliated to say that I've watched way more of the Knicks than the Celtics the past couple weeks. And it's gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, I like when they play Shumpert and Jeffries together. I'm like, am I becoming a Knicks fan? What's going on here?
I love it. It's been so much fun. It really is so much fun. And I love everybody now, the thing is is he legitimate? Can he be the real deal on this time a regular basis? Like I don't know if he can be an all-star point guard. I don't know if he can be the starting point guard on a championship contender. But I do know it's going to be a blast waiting to see if it can happen.
And worst case scenario, he's at least proven he will be better than, or J.J. Barea 2.0, basically. Somebody who comes off the bench for a really good team, swings the offense, makes some plays. I mean, at the very least, he's that.
Oh, I think he's proven he's a starter. Upside. Don't you think he's proven he's a starter?
I would say I'm 90% there. He's so sloppy. I need to see less turnovers.
Yes.
And also, the league's going to figure him out to some degree. The Darren Williams game was really interesting last night. I didn't like the fact that Calderon had it so easily against him before they switched on him. Things like that. I don't want to make a rush judgment. I'm the same person who owns 100 Phil Plantier rookie cards. So I'm always careful with this stuff. But I think he's at least proven, worst case scenario, he could be J.J. Barea on a contender. And that for the next 10 years, which is a great career. J.J. Barea is making $4 million a year. And Lin's going to make at least that. Plus, Lord only knows what's happening overseas for him. I can't even imagine what kind of commercials and stuff he's being offered. I mean, he must be just constant.
His agent says, I think his agent said, he hasn't slept in days. It's like one call after another, after another, after another. So.
Yeah, what a great story. I'm rooting for him. I don't want to make it seem like I'm a Knicks fan. It's more like I'm in a disenchanted marriage with the Celtics, and I am going to singles bars and maybe flirting with some of the girls in there, but that's it. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh, I love the analogies.
Celtics. I love the Celtics. I want to make this work. Mike Breen, where are you going to be this week?
I've got Dallas Lakers tomorrow night.
Oh.
Yeah, an interesting pre-All-Star game matchup.
Yeah, that's a nice one. And then you're off.
And then I'm off.
Yeah, you don't go to the All-Star game.
I'm going to stay home with my family for the weekend.
We'll be there. We're going to go tape a bunch of podcasts, talk to some legends. It's going to be great.
I'll look forward to it.
Very excited. Mike Breen, thank you very much.
Okay, Bill.
All right, as promised, we're going to call my buddy JackO at work. It's been a while. I'm actually getting emails from people asking what happened with me and JackO. The answer is that nothing's happened. We just haven't called him because there's been no baseball, but now it's spring training. It's time to call him. He's at work. He actually knows we're calling this time. I'm not going to pretend that he doesn't know, but let's give him a ring.
Complex Litigation, this is John.
Johnny!
What's up, buddy?
Happy spring training. Happy 2012. It's been
Thank
a
you
while
very
since
much.
your last BS report appearance. We thought we would call you at work. How are you?
Awesome, thanks. And yourself?
I'm starting to like sports again after the tragic events of Super Bowl 46. I know not as tragic for you since you're rooting for the Giants. Whatever.
Absolutely.
We could. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Let's just talk about baseball.
All right.
I'm very excited because
Just actually are ready to talk about the 2007 Super Bowl, I believe, right? Or 2008 after the 2007 season.
Not quite ready to talk about that one either, John.
All right. Well, we'll talk in a couple of years.
So, very excited today because the Red Sox finally got compensation for Theo Epstein.
Yeah.
World Series winning pitcher Chris Carpenter, now a member of the Red Sox. Very excited about this. I thought he was huge in the playoffs last year.
Well, I'm sure Bud Selig would have liked to have done that for his owners and masters in Boston, but I'm afraid this is a different Chris Carpenter.
What?
Yeah, this is the middling prospect Chris Carpenter who's shuttled between AA and AAA for the Cubs.
Oh, no, Johnny.
A scant 9 innings of Major League work for the Cubs a couple of years ago, I believe, is what I read today.
Oh, Johnny, I had this guy penciled in as our opening day starter.
Well, you and every other Boston Red Sox fan, if I read the comments on the Boston Globe correctly, because they got suckered in by the propaganda that somebody uttered that there would be, quote, significant compensation for Theo Epstein, unquote. So they had visions of Matt Garza dancing in their head, or maybe Starling Castro, and now they're left with a middling prospect and a player to be named later, and they have to give the Cubs a player to be named later. So it's all very disheartening for Red Sox Nation.
But Johnny,
Happy.
In all seriousness, anytime you could turn a two-time World Series winning GM into a middling middle relief prospect, you have to do that, I feel like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, savvy negotiating to let the guy go and then say, well, we'll work all this out later. The hot prospect that the Cubs want. That's good negotiating tactics right there.
Strong winter. And actually, I haven't been this disenchanted and upset with the Red Sox team in quite a long time. I don't remember looking forward to a Red Sox season less. Since...
Maybe that's a good sign in the reverse jinx world, though, because last year, the duck boats were getting oiled up for their run into the Charles after the World Series victory. That was inevitable with the signing of Crawford and Gonzalez, trading for Gonzalez, and everything else. And maybe now it's good that people are out on the ledge and ready to jump.
No, I don't think. I say it's not good, Johnny.
A lot of teams with no shortstop, no right fielder, no fourth or fifth starter have made great progress in the playoffs, so it could happen again.
Not since we started the 97 season with Aaron Seeley as the opening day starter have I been this upset about a Red Sox spring training.
Wow.
Just like, think of how it game 162. You can't end a season worse than that. Then immediately we go into the whole Beckett, John Lackey, people eating chicken and drinking beer in the clubhouse. That whole thing goes through. Then the Terry Francona smear campaign, which the owners now claim they had nothing to do with. So apparently it just magically appeared out of thin air, all this stuff that that was said about the guy who won 2 World Series for us. We hadn't won in 86 years, but let's definitely slander him on the way out the door. And then the John Henry weird interview where he kind of killed Carl Crawford,
right?
Who's like a Ming Vase. Ming Vase. I can't even say it.
Yeah.
Not really the kind of confidence that's going to weather the storm when the owner is ragging on him on a radio station. I have no idea why that happened. Then the whole weird managerial search of just like 6 weeks, just kind of circling Bobby V, but not wanting to hire him and circling him back and then not wanting to, and then finally kind of begrudgingly hiring him. I thought it was embarrassing.
Fantastic. And a fantastic press conference where Charrington claimed that Valentine was his choice all along.
Yeah, sure.
How he had decided on it and then ran it by ownership. I mean, come on. Nobody believes that. It's so patently false, but they feel the need to put that spin on things. It's just hilarious to me.
And then he had I thought it was weird that he had the thing with Sandy Alomar Jr.
Yeah.
We're we interviewed him. He's not ready. It's like, why would you say that about a job candidate? Like, it just makes you look like an a-hole.
And poor Gene Lamont, I think he's still waiting to find out if he got the Red Sox job.
Yeah, Gene.
They never told him for till after the press conference with Bobby Valentine.
Gene just found out right now, listen to the BS report, that he didn't get it.
Gene's like, well, I should be leaving for Florida pretty soon. If they let me know, send me some tickets or something. Gene
just last week was throwing out his scribbled notes of what might happen with the 25-man roster for the Red Sox. It's not good, Johnny. And then Beckett seems kind of defiant with his comments about last year.
Yeah.
Like not really coming out and saying he's sorry totally. That's going to be a whole thing. I'm just not looking forward to it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Johnny.
It's sad to see, really, in the 100th year of Fenway, because they're going to have trouble selling those 100th anniversary bricks that they've been peddling everywhere, I think.
Oh, my
God.
God.
When the team is battling for third place, I think it's going to be problematic.
I mean, seriously, what are they? Is there anything they're not selling from Fenway for this 100th anniversary? Are sewage pipes available? Can I buy a sewage pipe?
You absolutely could. The off chance that Ted Williams might have used it once.
I want to buy the seat during 2000, I think, when the guy in my row threw up next to me and it splattered on that seat. Maybe I could get that seat.
It'll be interesting to see if this is the year that people hop off the bandwagon if their sellout streak, which is manufactured anyway, if that finally comes to a halt, or the pink hats finally come to an end. Interesting.
I have a theory on this, Johnny, because you would say yes on paper that's going to happen, but it does seem like baseball has kind of weirdly weathered the storm with these attendance habits, because everybody can go to a baseball game once or twice a year. And, you can take your kids, you're outdoors, you can stay for 6 innings. It's not like the commitment that football, basketball, or even hockey is, I don't feel like. And then on top of that, the park itself, it seems like it's almost like there's a pilgrimage aspect too.
I think you're probably right. When I went to a Red Sox-Yankees game last year at Fenway, it has sort of it's like all this college kids. It's like a place to see and be seen, basically.
Yeah.
So, on your iPhone, tweeting that you're at Fenway Park and drinking $20 beers, and
right.
It's kind of like a fancy nightclub, I think, in Boston. It's just a place to go.
And there's a lot of stuff around the park now and stuff. Yeah. I think from that part they'll be fine, but from the local interest part, if they start out, really badly again, and the Celtics and Bruins will be making a deep front. Oh wait, the Celtics won't even make the playoffs. I forgot. I forgot. We're terrible.
You're a Clippers fan anyway. What do you care?
Stop it, please.
Every tweet is about the Clippers. I think the Celtics. I think that's why they're not good this year. It's what happened to us,
The problem is, I made my New Year's resolution in 2012 not to make angry, heat of the moment, passionate tweets about my teams.
Okay.
Which basically rules out any Celtics tweet I would have made for the last 3 months.
I mean, there was a time a couple of years ago when the sports guy would have been bashing Doc Rivers on Twitter or Danny Ainge, but now it's all about Vinny Del Negro. It's troubling to see.
Well, believe me, there might be some bashing in store for Danny.
All right.
If I'm Danny, I might want to buy insurance this week.
Is he on Twitter, Danny Ainge?
Nah, Danny's time is about to come, I think.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm not happy with the Celtics season.
What's
interesting is the Bruins.
Yeah.
The Bruins, I was shocked when I went home in mid-January. Just how much Bruin stuff there was. It was staggering in some of these stores. It was like 70% of the available Boston sports stuff was Bruin stuff, and normally it was always Red Sox and Patriots and Celtics to a lesser degree. And the Bruin people loved that Bruins team.
Well, Boston is a good hockey town, and
Totally.
The days of Bobby Orr, which was really the last Bruins heyday. So there's 40 years of pent up excitement waiting to explode there. People like hockey in Boston, and
it's the right sport for Boston. It's a blue collar sport, and
that's right.
It just fits in the best. That was always the case. The problem is hockey itself wasn't a great product, and the Bruins had a bad owner, which turned people off. But I really think that they had a chance to just, after that Patriots loss, and then with the way this Red Sox season might be going, the Bruins really had a chance to maybe go after the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
And then it's weird, but Tim Thomas, that White House thing, it really hurt the season.
Put the brakes on the season.
It really did. I've been watching all these games. I actually watch a lot of hockey, and the team has not been, I don't know whether it's just like a massive coincidence, but the team just doesn't seem the same since that happened. It was like this really weird event. I keep saying weird on the podcast. Sorry about that. I just had a salad. I'm a little lightheaded. But it seemed like it negatively affected the team, and you can kind of see it when you watch the games. I mean, they've had some other things like Horton got a concussion, all this stuff, but
well, Massachusetts is like the most reliably Democratic state in America.
It's a bummer.
It's not really a good place to diss the beloved Democratic president in Massachusetts. He's beloved, I'm sure. Not a good place to be a conservative or Tea Party-eyed, although I guess he hates both parties according to his Facebook ramblings. But and not a good spot for Tim Thomas to be in, really. He single-handedly won the Stanley Cup last year, basically, for the Bruins.
Yeah, he did.
And then there was reports that, speculation as to whether he'd be traded because he refused to go to the White House. So that tells you how far things can fall when you make an ill-timed tweet or whatever I guess it wasn't a tweet, it was his refusal to go to the White House, and then explaining his reasoning on Facebook or whatever. So
apparently he's always been kind of quietly a lunatic.
Yeah, that's when all the stories came out behind the scenes in the locker room. He's the guy that emails you with stories you're supposed to read and stuff,
I do feel like people overrate this in sports because whether you're on a college dorm, on the floor of a college dorm, or whether you're in an office with people, or whether it's like a week with your family or whatever, you're always going to have a couple loose cannons. And they're actually, I wrote a whole column about this once about A-Rod for the magazine like 4 years ago. It's actually kind of fun to have the one loose cannon because then he leaves the room and you talk about him and you make jokes about him and it kind of
everybody else could bond about
Yeah, but it's a bonding. You bond about how crazy this one guy is.
Plus, on the HBO series 24/7 about hockey, we've learned that hockey goalies are kind of like pitchers. They're kind of zany and weird anyway, so the rest of the team doesn't really associate with them because they'll say, oh, that's the goalie, he's crazy. So I don't know how much it really affects things on the Bruins as a team.
I can vouch for that firsthand because I've gone to, I think, 12 Kings games now. It's sitting behind the net just watching the goalies because the goalie's right there. It's like 12 feet away. And it's a weird job. You can't be normal and have that job. It's really one of the strangest ongoing things I think I've ever witnessed. And the amount of water they drink and the liquid they throw in their faces, and then they're just kind of hanging out. And then all of a sudden they got 5 guys charging at them. Yeah. You can't be normal and have that job. I'm convinced.
Somebody's slapping a big hard piece of rubber at you at 100 miles an hour, 120, whatever the puck flies. It's got to be a little disconcerting or a little twitchy.
And it's not just that. It's also look, I'm not going to pretend to be Mr. Hockey, but from what I could tell, my limited hockey pea brain, like really a big part of the sport is just kind of trying to create a play and then sending some guy charging into the net. And 1 out of every 10 times that guy gets checked or pushed or whatever and just goes flying into the goalie at full speed.
Yeah.
So he's got to worry about that too all the time. This 6'3" guy, he's watching the puck and all of a sudden he gets bowled over. The game I went to Thursday, Kopitar got pushed into the Coyotes goalie, and the guy went like hand-to-hand on slapshot on him, just like ripped off the mask, went flying at him and beat him up. But it's not a great job. So anyway, back to the Bruins though. I think I don't know if this screwed up their season or not. It does seem like they have a trade to make because they're under the cap, but it really did seem like for the first time they might have a chance at that number 1 spot for the first time since I don't even remember, the late 70s maybe? I don't know.
Weren't they? Well, though, wasn't it like in the '90s when we were in college when they went to the Stanley Cup against Edmonton? Weren't they like a number one seed that year, or were they lower?
Yeah, you could make a case the Neely Bork teams might have been number one. I mean, the Clemens era Red Sox were pretty
I'm sorry.
huge.
I thought you meant number one seed is like in the
No,
East.
I meant number
one in Boston.
Yeah.
Even in a down year, people live and breathe Red Sox 12
They really do.
year, though.
Really
the
do.
biggest bandwagon I've ever seen in history, though, and you probably will even admit this, is the New England Patriots. I grew up my entire life in Connecticut. I didn't know a single New England Patriots fan. I knew one kid, and that was because his uncle or cousin was Matt Cavanaugh, the Patriots backup to Steve Grogan.
Right.
That's a true story. I mean, I knew kids, everybody loved the Steelers and the Cowboys or the Giants or the Jets. You know, you'd see a handful of Dolphins fans for whatever reason. Maybe it was the early years of Marino, although I'm even talking earlier than that.
Right.
But I literally didn't know a single New England Patriots fan, and I grew up in Connecticut. And now, maybe it's since Parcells in the 90s, or certainly since Brady and Belichick, now you can't walk 5 feet without like tripping over somebody in head-to-foot Patriots gear.
Even in
I
college.
couldn't tell you what number Steve Grogan wore.
Even in college, we went to college in Massachusetts. Like, how many Patriot fans did you know other than me?
Yeah, you and your roommate Gene McDonough. You think you were the first two I ever met.
Yeah, it was a grim time in college. They were like, I think we had 2 different 1-in-15 seasons.
And to call them like the ugly stepsister of Boston sports, I mean, it was always, Red Sox, Celtics. The Celtics obviously were ascendant then, and Bruins because people were into hockey, but the Patriots were like an afterthought.
Yes, and then some. And in fact, the reason that I started gambling.
Yes.
They were so
bad.
bad.
Some interest in the NFL.
And fantasy hadn't really taken off at that point, and it was just year after year of the Patriots not having a chance by the end of September. And
I remember watching the NFL draft the year they drafted Eugene Chung as their number one pick.
I remember that.
And you just leaving and going to take like a 45-minute shower, try and collect your thoughts.
I think they traded down for him. I think we had a great pick and traded down for Eugene Chung. Yeah, some dark times. Can you tell people that I once loved hockey? Because I think some people don't believe it. You were there in college.
You used to travel to go see hockey games.
Yeah, I did.
We were at HC by the Sea, the Cape, when they were in the finals against Edmonton, and it wasn't on cable TV or it wasn't on our TV, or maybe we didn't have a TV, but you traveled to a bar, probably using a fake ID to go watch the Bruins Edmonton Oilers final.
I did. I used a fake ID to get in a bar to watch one of those games. And I went to game 2 of that thing. Yeah, once upon a time I did care, and now I care again. And I don't care. You can take your shots at me.
Right.
It is this weird. I do get it. I get it from the side of if you're a Bruins fan that stuck with the team like through the lockout, through all the lean years, and and then all of a sudden they get good again, and people are like, "Hey, the Bruins." You'd be like, "Hey, screw you! I was here all along." I get that.
Well, hockey fans are very territorial. It's like this private club.
Yep.
And you have to, be really into it and know the finer nuances of the game and esoteric facts. And they don't like when people just tread in and try to be a trendy hockey fan.
Nope.
They don't care for that at all. It's a weird subset as the 4th most popular sport in America. So.
I called it the cult of the status quo, because soccer fans are like this too, and I think the super diehard baseball fans are like this too, where they just want to talk about their sport as intellectually and using all the data and I just at the highest possible level, and they have no tolerance for any other opinion whatsoever.
Absolutely.
You can't be a casual fan in those things. I think boxing has become like that to some degree. Unfortunately, nobody cares about boxing.
Right.
But for the 7 people that love boxing, I think it's like that. But I think soccer is the best example of that. The soccer fans get they get angry when people try to, be like, "Oh, I'm a big Newcastle fan." Like, "Oh, really? Name 5 players. Name them."
Exactly. You have to take an entrance exam before you're allowed to root for them.
Before you're allowed to be in the soccer conversation. But I'm excited I think. Hopefully the Kings are going to make it, and the Clippers are going to be in the playoffs, and all of a sudden I'm going to be at the Staples Center every night for like 2 months. My wife is also very excited about this.
I can tell. I'm sure she is.
Not
yeah,
really. No, she's not. So wait, we got to talk about AJ Burnett.
Yes.
So
it's like Christmas.
In the longest transaction since the Louisiana Purchase,
right?
Pittsburgh finally acquired AJ Burnett. What did the Yankees? How much of his contract will you be paying?
$20 million of the $33 million remaining, I believe.
Wow.
But the funny thing to me, and I kept watching it from afar, obviously, I watched it from afar because I wasn't intimately involved in the trade negotiations.
You were?
Shocking. Maybe. Good thing I clarified that. As I watched it on Twitter and in the various newspapers and online, I couldn't believe the cojones on Cashman, because you have A.J. Burnett, who has no spot in the rotation. You owe him a fortune comparatively. And all you want to do is get rid of him, and you find a willing partner in the Pirates, and then instead of just saying, here, take him off our hands, you were going to quibble about how much money and quibble about the prospects you were getting back. It would be like if I had a 1985 Yugo with 400,000 miles on it and 3 wheels, and I tried to sell it to a guy through the newspaper, and then I'm like, but you have to buy me dinner first.
Yeah.
And we were negotiating about what size steak I could get. I couldn't believe it, but it worked out because I guess they upgraded the prospects.
Cashman's like, you have to buy me dinner, and also, can I have some help here with the sports blog stuff that I'm going through right now? Can you just throw me a bone? Do you know anybody in the guy who works for Gawker? Anybody? Can
you pick up my phone and tell this woman I've moved?
Man, it's tough times.
Yeah, bad job all around by Brian. Apparently, he never saw Fatal Attraction.
He would not have been in my top 100 of my draft preparation for the Stalked by a Crazy Ex-Flame sports fantasy draft.
No, it's pretty
incredible.
incredible.
Not have Brian Cashman in there.
It's pretty incredible job by Brian Cashman.
So,
he's doing a lot of weird things. He dresses like an elf every Christmas and rappels down some building in Stamford, and living a separate life from Mrs. Cashman, and juggling mistresses, and still trading A.J. Burnett. It's really, I have to review and relook at things over the past couple of years when I've been a Cashman critic, but he's got a lot on his hands,
America has been on pins and needles waiting for your take for the Michael Pineda, Jesus Montero trade, which was one of my favorite random trades in a long time.
Yeah, I'm excited by it. Jesus Montero showed in a little bit last year that he can definitely hit the ball, but the Yankees have no position for him because they say he's not good enough to catch, and he's going to be a DH. And you can always find a DH. And because the Yankees are locked into A-Rod's contract, and Jeter's not getting any younger, and Teixeira, they need to keep the DH spot open for those guys to get a rest, as it were, to play DH a couple games a year or so, or a couple times a week. So they can't have a guy who's getting paid a lot of money or as a full-time DH. So it made sense, and you can get a young arm. I was initially very, very excited about it, and I still am excited about it, but some of Pineda's numbers outside of Safeco make me a little nervous.
Yep.
His ERA is high outside of Safeco, which is a pitcher's ballpark. So that makes me a little bit nervous, and he trailed off, too. But, he's a young guy. He probably wasn't used to pitching that number of innings. So, no, I'm excited about it. And anytime you can get a young arm, you got to make that trade.
Johnny, I'm going to defend a guy who I have protected at $16 in the League of Dorks this year, and who I watched intimately last year and watched many of his starts.
All right.
So, first of all, the Safeco thing. That's the first thing that gets thrown up. Here's my counter to that. He was always pitching in front of 22,000 people. That place was always dead. And I think if you put him in Yankee Stadium and you have a real crowd that's behind him and standing up every time he gets 2 strikes on anybody, he is one of those guys that he'll go from 97 to 99 on the right pitch.
Yeah.
I think the fans could really connect with him, and I think they're going to like him. He's physically just crazy imposing. You just see him on the mound. He's what is he, 6'7"? He's got long arms. He throw if you're a batter and you're just watching this guy and these crazy appendages coming at you, and you're going to be terrified the whole time. And on top of that, the crowd going nuts. I just think he's going to be great for them. I really do.
Probable pennant race.
Yeah, and every game he's going to pitch matters, and not just that, but every game that he pitched last year, he knew that he couldn't give up more than 2 runs or he's going to get the loss. I think at some point there is some pressure that goes with, you just be bummed out. You're like, I got to pitch again. If I make one mistake, I'm going to lose again because I have Franklin Gutierrez batting 5th.
Right.
Now he can go be in the Yankees, and they're going to score 7 runs a game for him. I think he's going to have a monster year. I really do.
I was a little worried, too, because there was reports from John Heyman, among others, that he was a little heavy reporting for spring training. But, he's a young guy. He can probably work that off. Off-season.
That is a little bit of a concern. I did not hear that.
Yeah, but Sabathia looks good, apparently, so that makes me feel better.
You forgot to say, speaking of heavy.
Yeah, exactly. segueing into CC, yes.
Well, I'm torn on how to handle this Pineda thing because we're the favorites in the League of Dorks this year, and he's such a big part of the team. But do I want to be in a situation where I'm really invested in the success of a Yankee pitcher?
Nice. I like that.
No, I think we have to trade him, right?
No, this way. No, it's like betting against your team. You know, this way you're.
Okay, I'm hedged, so I call him the hedge, Michael Pineda.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
This way you're happy either way. Like, you'd be bummed out when the Yankees win the World Series, but if he has a good year and you win the League of Dorks, you're like, well, at least there's a silver lining.
I think the crowd's going to love him. And, you know, CC's worked out great. I think the fans really like CC. I think you would do that contract 100 times out of 100.
Oh, yeah.
You're not hopping to the stadium because you're going to see CC Sabathia pitch. You enjoy seeing him pitch.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like, oh, I got CC tickets tonight.
Yeah,
I don't think it's on that level, right?
Like Pedro in the 90s. No, it doesn't have the same cachet.
Pineda's one of those guys that you'll be watching, and they'll be playing somebody crappy. Like, I don't know. I was going to say the Royals, but who knows? They might actually be half decent. Maybe.
You're always safe to say the Orioles.
Yeah, the Orioles or maybe the Mariners are in town, and Pineda strikes out 8 of the first 9 guys. Like, now you're in. Now, no matter what else is going on in your life, you're now watching the next 4 innings. Like, it's always fun to have a pitcher like that.
I like strikeout pitchers, guys who throw heat. I like that.
I think you're going to enjoy him.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm excited about the Yankee season. They have on paper, they dreaded on paper, they have a solid rotation.
I don't think the other move is going to work out.
Kuroda?
Yeah, I don't like that one.
Well, I never like guys going from the National League to the American League, especially when he had to basically be dragged like kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
You know, there was all these rumors at the trade deadline he didn't want to play anywhere but LA or Japan. So, yeah, I'm not inspired. I'm nervous about that one.
That is, I think we've learned over the years with the New York Yankees that it takes a certain type of person to succeed, and you don't want the guy who is dragging and kicking as he left his old city.
Right. Yeah, that's never a good sign. Maybe he can fly under the radar because they have so many other people. He's not really going to be the focus.
What is the A-Rod update?
I don't know what the A-Rod update is. I think he's feeling good. As far as I know, I haven't heard any reports. It's been kind of quiet for him. There was no scenes of him being fed popcorn at the Super Bowl, so that's good.
What's the Derek Jeter update? Is he back with Minka Kelly? Like, where does this stand here?
Unclear. The latest I saw, I think, was in the New York Post on page 6, where they were in Paris together not that long ago. So
Ooh.
It's a good sign for Minka.
He was consoling her after the abrupt cancellation of Charlie's Angels.
Apparently, yes. That was the problem, I think. She was moving to L.A. for Charlie's Angels, but I guess that problem is alleviated. It's worked itself out. So
that problem was alleviated when America saw Charlie's Angels.
Exactly. So it might have been a happy ending for Minka.
Yeah.
One door closes, another one opens.
Hey, if this Derek Jeter thing doesn't work out, I really think the next stop is erotic thrillers.
Let's hope. In that case, I might have to root for
for them.
I might have to root for Derek to get a couple gift baskets going again.
Not a lot of quivers left in her what? What is the?
You don't see an Oscar in her future?
Quivers left in the what? In the bag?
A lot of arrows in her quiver.
A lot of arrows in the quiver?
The quiver is like the bag that you keep your arrows in. Yeah.
I am like super dumb today.
Yeah, I don't know what's in that salad you ate.
It was a lot of hummus, and it made my breath smell, and it made me a little lightheaded. I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the roommate didn't really work out. I don't know if you saw that one, Leighton Meester.
No, I missed that one. That was like the single white female knockoff.
It wasn't a knockoff. It was
shot for shot reproduction.
It basically was. It was basically, yeah. It was for people who weren't quite old enough to know that Single White Female was a movie that was made. I like those. Where they're like, yeah, it's enough years past. What has it been, 15? Yeah, well, let's just do it.
Right. They didn't even have Facebook the first time this was made. Come on. People will totally buy it.
No. And then the other problem is, or not a problem, but it's not like there's like this huge outpouring of single white female defenders 20 years later who are going to be like picketing because they remade, Bridget Fonda's last good movie. So,
right.
Not a terrible cable watch, though, Johnny.
And thinking about it, there's actually not a lot of people that know that Bridget Fonda existed, let alone that single white female existed.
That's true. Bridget Fonda just went over the head of anyone over 25 in this thing.
That's right. Thank God for Google.
Last thing. Actually, you know what? Let's just we want to start bringing you back a little more often now that spring training started. So I'll save the other things we were going to talk about, and we'll just call you either next week or the week after.
You'll keep those arrows in your quiver.
Give us quickly though. I'll keep those arrows in my quiver. Just last thing though, Sal and I may or may not have bet a lot of money on Mitt Romney to win the Republican nomination 4 months ago when the odds were even.
Yeah.
We consider this bet to be basically a lock because there was nobody who could beat him.
Right.
At what point do we really start to get concerned here?
If he loses Michigan, which I think is next week, then you might want to find a Michael Pineda for that bet. You might
Really?
Things. Yeah. If he loses Michigan, he's got enormous problems.
Could who would be favored at that point if he loses Michigan?
Obama.
Well, no. This is just to win the Republican nomination.
I know. I'm kidding, but
I don't know. I mean, Santorum has risen, and he appeals to a lot of social conservatives. Although, between what he said over the weekend about theology and he said something today about how Satan has his eyes set on the United States, so that might be a little troubling for Republican voters. And Romney was on the rise in Michigan anyway. I saw a couple polls today where he has a modest lead, so. You might still be in good shape with that bet, but if Santorum was to win Michigan, it would be a big problem.
What do you think's gone better, the Republican nomination process or the Red Sox managerial search? And what's had more twists and turns?
It's a coin flip, I'll tell you.
And who's your Bobby V?
Yeah,
is Mitt Romney Bobby V? He kind of is, right?
Probably is.
You kind of keep looking at him going, nah, we can't make him the candidate. And then you circle around. You go, well, exactly. Yeah, he did make the World Series that year. Well.
That's a very apt comparison, actually. Yeah, because the Red Sox had to take a good, long, hard look at Bobby V and convince themselves of it. And I think the same thing is the case for Romney with Republican voters. So it's a very good description.
It was more than a hard look. I mean, I think they actually just pulled up a chair and stared at him for 3 straight days. Watched him shower, take poops, eat.
Yeah.
It was that kind of look, Johnny.
Yeah, he seems to be happy to have the job, though. He's like everywhere, so.
I'm going to make a prediction, then we're going to go, and we'll talk to you. We have more to cover next time. But I do think people in Boston are going to like him. He's very media savvy, and Boston historically has been a city that kind of responds to these coaches that know how to work the media.
I think the players are going to hate him, and I think it will not end well. But I think for a while, people will be into it, and it'll be like Bobby Ball, they'll be into it. But I don't think it's going to end well, and the players will absolutely despise him.
Do you think they'll hate him because they'll think he's a me first ego guy, or because he won't let them drink beer and eat chicken in the clubhouse?
No, I think it because they think it's all about him and that he's going to throw them under the bus in the media quite openly. Whereas Terry was like he was going to give them some Bigelow tea and give them a pat on the back and say, it was nobody's fault. Bobby V is not going to be afraid to throw guys under the bus.
Well,
we need to call Crawford to get a hit there, and he didn't. Things like that.
I might have to go against the grain and be a Bobby V guy because I can't think of anything else that would get me excited for this Red Sox season. So to be in the minority of people who thought Bobby V, and maybe he'll save the national treasure, Johnny.
Maybe. It's true. He does speak Japanese, so maybe.
This could be the national treasure. It's big. He's in a contract year. A lot of good stuff could happen here with the national treasure.
He comes back in the second half and leads them on to victory. It could be the saving grace for the national treasure.
They said he's hitting the high 70s now on the radar gun, so we're excited about that, yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed, yeah.
Johnny, always a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
All right, see you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Unfortunately, that's it for Bill today, and football's regular season is over. But don't worry, there's still plenty to celebrate, because Subway Footlong Nation Appreciation is on. To thank you for making footlongs famous, Subway's giving away thousands of prizes every day, including free footlongs for life. Head to Subway and grab a 30-ounce drink or Doritos Nacho Cheese Chips for game codes. Then, visit Subway.com online or on your mobile device to enter your code for a chance to win big. We're giving away a prize a minute, so hurry in. Subway, where winners eat.